Hello everyone, today we're going to go into a new topic, and that is going to be angles. So first, just for some vocabulary, an angle is a figure formed by two rays or sides with a common endpoint called the vertex. And so here we see a diagram. We see my vertex is R, and I have two rays coming off to the side of it, and that creates this angle here. And we have something called the interior angle, so that's what's inside of the angle, and the exterior is what's on the outside. And we have many different ways that we can name angles. So first off, we can use three letters. So all the points that make up the angle, so I call this SRT, or I can call it TRS. But what's important to note here is that the vertex in both of these is in the middle. So that always has to be the case. The letter that is the vertex has to be in the middle when naming it. And then there are also two other ways that we can name this. If I just have an angle like this, there's nothing else coming out of my vertex, I can also just call this by its vertex, by angle R. But use that one sparingly. A lot of times we can't use that one. And then I can also call it by this number that's inside here. So I can also call this angle 1. So there are four different ways that we can name an angle. And so again, for that note, when using 3 points to name an angle, the middle letter must represent the vertex. So I couldn't call this angle RST. That wouldn't work. Okay, let's get some practice with naming angles. So for this first one, it says a lighthouse keeper measures the angles formed by the lighthouse at point M and 3 boats. Name 3 angles shown in the diagram. Okay, well, the most obvious one that you can look at first, well, maybe it's not the most obvious one, but the one that catches out to me is this whole entire angle. And so I can name that by angle JML. So that's the entire thing. Well, I have 2 others that I can do. I also have this angle right here, so that's going to be angle JMK, JM to K. And then I have this angle on the right here, and so that's going to be K to M to L. So again, you notice that in all 3 of these, my vertex was in the middle, that M. And so here is a good example of I couldn't just call any of these just angle M. Because if I just said angle M, well, I wouldn't know if I was referring to that angle, to the angle on the right, or if I was referring to the whole angle. So that is why we can't just use that. I also could have switched around my letters. I could have put L first here and then J, so I could have called this LMJ or KMJ or LMK. It's okay if you switch that order. Okay, go ahead and practice this by trying that next one. So pause the video and try that next problem. Okay, so this is the answer that you should have gotten for number 2. So that angle on the left, that's going to be BAC. Again, my vertex is in the middle. You could have also called this CAB. For the angle on the right, you should have gotten CAD, or again, you could have switched the D and the C. And then for that last one. Okay, now let's get just a little bit more practice. So this one says to write 3 names for the angle. So for this first one, first off note, I can use just the 3 letters that make up the angle. So that will be P, Q, and R. And I look to see which one's my vertex. My vertex is Q, so my Q needs to be in the middle. Well, I also know that I can just switch those 2 letters on the outside, so I can do RQP. And since this is an angle that is just this one angle, there's no other angles in this picture, I can call this just by its vertex, so angle Q. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and try and do that last one on your own, but I challenge you to find 4 different names for that angle. So these are the 4 different names you should have gotten. So again, the different letters, the 3 letters in there with my vertex in the middle. You could have just called by its vertex since this is only one angle in the picture. And then since there's a number in there, this one we didn't have that number, but since this one does, we can also call it by angle 1. Okay, that's it for this video. Go ahead and move on to the next one to learn about measuring and classifying angles.